So recently I was given this stone, which is a Norton crystalline stone, silicon carbide. And it really changed the way I thought about bench stones and bench stone sharpening, everything. It was a bit revolutionary for me. When I first started working, everybody had either crystalline stone or a Norton India stone. And they were dished, they were worn, they were clogged, jammed up, covered in sawdust. They didn't cut very well. And in doing so, in looking for a way to sharpen my tools, I eventually found sandpaper on glass. And that's worked for me for 20 years. I did have a little foray into some water stones. These are king stones. There's a 220, 1000, and an 800 grit. As well as this one, which is a Norton 4000, 8000 combo stone. I've tried some other things like these little ceramic stones, the DMT plates. I have a fine, extra fine, and a coarse. And this water stone, which is a Sharpening Pro 120, I believe it's called. And so we started talking about cutting speeds and how this one particularly, the coarse side of the India stone, cuts really quickly. And you could use a fair bit of pressure on it because it won't dish. Using the mineral oil on it I like because it doesn't adversely affect the wood for the most part in the way that water can. Now, if you have a bit of water with some swarf in it and you drip it on the wood, you're going to get iron stains in it, and you can't really get rid of those. If you drop a bit of mineral oil in the wood and you wipe it off right away, chances are it's not going to affect anything, because most of the finishes are either oil-based finishes, or if you've wiped it off quick enough, it's not going to hurt anything. So I started thinking about whether or not, or actually Cliff asked me, if this Shapton at lower pressures would cut faster than the coarse India stone. So I was using this chisel, 1 inch wide. The cutting width here is 0.4 inches. And what I decided I would do was I'd make a series of passes on the stone, first going in this direction, stopping every 10 passes to check the edge for scratches. And once I had established a scratch pattern that was running from front to back and completely covering the thing, I'd then turn the chisel 90 degrees and do it again. And that was sort of the basic test, checking every 10 passes. And once I had recut all the scratches, I'd mark down that number and then go to the other stone, doing it this way and then turning it 90 degrees and doing it this way and counting both passes. So basically it was just a test to see how many passes it would take to erase the other stone's cutting edge. And at really low pressures, like a pound, like the weight of the chisel plus enough to my fingers to stabilize it, this stone does cut faster. And as you sort of ramp the pressure up a bit, they even out. You know, but the thing that I found almost right away is I was getting some odd results. And what I realized, like to the point where like this one would be 15 passes at higher pressure, but this would be 50. But it was always sort of, the scratch pattern would be centralized to the middle of the blade, and it would eventually work its way out towards the edges. So I took this stone and I washed it because it didn't seem right that it would be that much difference in cutting speed. I washed it off and I checked it. I checked it with a ruler. And where is it? So I took this as a straight edge and laid it on the stone across the corners. And I checked it, and sure enough you could see light. And then I actually used some feeler gauges and found that with under 300 passes, like 250 passes, this stone was now 8 thou at a flat in the middle. Whereas this stone was, I found a spot in the middle where I could get the point, or the 2 thou feeler, I could just barely get it under the ruler. And that, I think, is because I hadn't completely lapped this flat. I thought I had, but I didn't check it. This one I know was flat. And so 200 passes, it was that far out that it was affecting the results of the test to the point where it it didn't make any sense to continue. So I found that interesting, and just so even if this does cut faster, in a time is money kind of a sense, this stone, the Norton India stone, makes far more sense as long as you keep it clean, because it not only does it cut sort of at the same rate or maybe slightly faster at higher pressures, you can continue to use it to do several chisels that might need sharpened, as opposed to sort of get halfway through sharpening one and have to relap the stone. And as another interesting side note, there was a little chip here. This is one of my grandfather's chisels, and I've never really used it. It's always been one I keep with me because I just appreciate it. But there was a chip here, and it's always been there, and I thought, well, this would be a good chance to maybe take that chip out. So with the 300, just under 300 passes on here, and quite a few more on here, just because of the way the results worked out, I'm only about halfway through taking that out. Now, of course, I could just grind it, but I don't really want to. So that was just that. So that was the sharpening versus the India stone. And when I keep these, what I do, just to keep the dust off them, because it is a woodworking shop, when I'm done with them, I'll wrap them up in a piece of paper towel, and then I'll wrap them in a piece of parchment paper, and then I can put them away, and I don't have to worry about the oil oozing out on everything. And even this one is in the box, and it's wrapped in parchment paper. And I've used this one a little bit to sharpen some knives. Matter of fact, I used them on these knives right here. These knives are knives that I put the handles on. The blades were ground by Joe Colton. Very nice knives, very nice blades on them. Put ebony handles on them. Quite happy with the way these turned out. So that's that. Now, I want to talk about this stone. This is the Norton 4K 8K combo stone. This is a terrible stone. It's awful. I can't say anything about it that I really like. And the biggest complaint is the dissimilar stones glued together. This stone is constantly out of flat. This side will always have a crown on it, and this side always has a dish on it. Now, I lapped this stone yesterday, and I lapped it when it was dry, and just checking it against the light. And it's flat enough. Like, it's reasonably flat right now, but I lapped it dry. Now, if I was to put this in the water right now and allow it to soak up the water, this side would soak up less than this side, and it would bow. And then I could lap it flat to use it, and then if it dried out again, it wouldn't stay flat. So, the 8K side loads up instantly, and it's fairly hard, so it doesn't release any abrasive. The 4K side is really soft, and it just basically goes to mush when you use it. I don't have very many nice things to say about this stone, but that said, I'm going to start trying to use it with mineral oil from now on, and see how that works. It may or may not make a difference. If it doesn't make a difference, then it's going in the garbage, because it's just too frustrating to use. I mean, I can go from the fine side of the coarse India is fine enough for a lot of my woodworking tasks. It'll make a chisel sharp enough to do a lot of the things I need it to do. Now, it won't get me to the point where I think, that's like, I can't put a nice finish on a board with a hand plane. It doesn't give you that level of push cutting sharpness. But I can get there in other ways. I've got this ultra fine Spyderco bench stone, which puts a tremendous edge on. Now, that would be a bit of a jump. I'm still quite comfortable using sandpaper and glass. Like, it's something I've used for a long time, so it's not like I'm gonna stop using it just because I've got these things. Like, there's still certain applications for it. But and these little stones here, ceramic stones that came from Lee Valley, and I think they were bigger stones at one point. They might have even been factory rejects, because you can see both of them are the same. They've both been cut, in half, so they were obviously bigger. And were cut down, so I lapped these yesterday and cleaned them up because they were, this one especially was quite a bit out of flat and didn't cut very well at all. So I'm going to try these again with oil, because they tell you in the ad for them, you know, you can use them dry, you never have to worry about them, blah blah blah. If you use them dry, they load instantly, and then they don't do anything. So we're going to try them with the mineral oil. We're going to go to mineral oil for this stone. These 3 stones, I'm basically giving up on. I'm letting them dry out, and I'm just going to put them away. If somebody wants them, they can have them. I don't care.